Wherever you are tonight, thank you for joining the Quiet Scientist. I'm so glad you're here. Let the days soften now. Let the noise outside turn dim and far away. In this quiet space, you're safe. You're here. You're gently unraveling the kind of question that doesn't demand an answer, just your curiosity and the comfort of listening. Tonight's story is about something delightfully strange, something your body knows intimately, and yet it slips through your fingers when you try to summon it on your own. A sensation we all remember from childhood, laughter that spills out uninvited, squirming when someone reaches for your ribs, that helpless kind of joy, tickling, and more curiously, why you can't do it to yourself. You might have tried, just to check. Maybe you dragged your fingers across the arch of your foot or the back of your neck, hoping for a giggle. But no, it doesn't work. Not the same way. Not even close. Somehow, your own touch doesn't surprise you. It doesn't sneak up behind your nerves. It's like trying to scare yourself with a shadow you already see coming. I hope this story helps you relax, or even drift off to sleep. But if it keeps your mind gently alert, tracing the shape of a mystery you didn't know you had, that's okay too. And if you happen to stay awake a little longer, well, you might just leave with a curious new detail to share over breakfast. Before we drift too far into tonight's exploration, a soft tap on the like button or subscribe would mean the world. It helps. The Quiet Scientist keep growing quietly, in just the right way. And if you're listening from somewhere special, I'd love to know. What time is it where you are? Are the stars out yet? Or maybe the first light of morning is just beginning to stretch across your window. And of course, though we speak of the body and the brain, this story isn't medical advice, just a quiet wander through the gentle oddities of being human. Now, take a deep breath in and slowly let it go. One more. Soft in, softer out. Let yourself sink. Imagine the sensation. A single feather. It brushes lightly across the arch of your foot or glides beneath your chin. The tickle blooms instantly. A flutter, a squirm, a giggle you didn't ask for. It's not painful. It's not even especially pleasant, but it's powerful. It pulls a reaction from you faster than thought. Tickling is one of the first sensations you remember. As a child, maybe you curled into a pillow fort, squealing as someone chased your toes with playful fingers. It was a game, a ritual, a language of touch and trust, and at the heart of it, an exquisite vulnerability, the knowledge that someone else could reach a part of you that you couldn't fully protect. But try as you might, you can't replicate it alone. You've probably tested it. Your fingers trace along your ribs or press into the dip behind your knee. You might feel the pressure, the cold, the texture of your own skin, but it's not the same. There's no startled giggle, no involuntary twitch, just the quiet realization that your own hands don't have the same power. Why? That question has puzzled thinkers for centuries, even Aristotle, long before the brain was fully mapped, mused on tickling and laughter, wondering why some touches delighted while others disturbed. He may not have solved it, but the question remained, humming quietly in the background of scientific thought. And in that question lies a hidden thread, one that winds through your sense of self, your perception of touch, and the deep, quiet machinery of your brain. It's not just about the skin, it's about prediction, surprise, safety, control. It's about how your body knows what's coming and how it decides what to let in. As we drift deeper tonight, we'll walk that thread gently. You'll discover how the brain learns to filter your own movements, how laughter is more than joy, sometimes defense, and why even the lightest touches carry hidden meaning. You'll meet other creatures who tickle and laugh in their own way. You'll feel how culture, evolution, and memory shape the simplest touches into something complex, something intimate, something just a little strange. So now, let your arms rest beside you. Let your breath slow to a calm rhythm. There's nothing you need to do, nothing you need to solve. Just listen, float along, and wonder softly. Let's begin where most of our mysteries do, with evolution, long ago, in the hush of early life, before language was born and before laughter had a name. Creatures learned to flinch, not from pain, not from injury, but from the softest intrusion, a rustle in the fur, a breath of air, a footfall nearby. That flinch, that twitch, was survival, a warning, a message carried not in words, but in nerves and in muscle fibers. And from that twitch, that delicate alertness, something new evolved. In mammals, especially in social ones like us, the twitch became play, the flinch became laughter. Tickling in this light is not a glitch in the system, but a language all its own. Some researchers even believe tickling might have helped early humans bond. In a world where trust had to be earned without words, touch became a tool. A tickle says, I see you. I know where you're most vulnerable, and I choose not to harm you. Instead, I play. But this only works when it's someone else. A mother brushing her child's belly, a friend teasing your side with a poke. Their fingers are unknown agents, unpredictable, outside your control. They hold just enough mystery to stir a reflex. Your own fingers don't have that power. You know them too well. Your brain watches them move, hears them plan the touch even before your skin feels it. No mystery, no surprise, just motion already accounted for. That's where we begin. With a sensation you can't create for yourself, and a mind that's always one step ahead. In the next moments, we'll step into the sensations themselves. What does tickling feel like? Why does it land where it does? And why, when it's coming from you, does the feeling gently vanish before it even starts? Let's follow that feather again, brushing through the air. But this time, we'll watch what happens, not just to the skin, but to the mind behind it. Now, follow the motion of the feather, not one made of quills or air, but the imagined kind that lives quietly in your memory. You can almost feel it glide across your skin, not quite a touch, not quite pressure, but something more elusive. It moves gently with no real weight, and yet your body knows it's there. The moment it brushes past a sensitive spot, your side, your neck, maybe just beneath your arm, your breath catches. Your shoulder might lift on instinct, or your stomach might tense without asking. That's the tickle, the sensation you never consciously summon, but your body still recognizes like an old friend who never knocks at the door. You're not alone in this experience. Most people are ticklish somewhere, and curiously, many of those somewheres are the same. Ribs, feet, underarms, necks. These aren't just random patches of skin, they're places of vulnerability, soft, exposed, close to vital organs or delicate joints. Long ago, when survival depended on alertness and quick response, your ancestors' bodies learned to treat these areas with special attention. A slight brush in these spots could signal danger, a spider crawling, a snake's flickering tongue, the footsteps of something that should not be so close. Tickling, in this light, is not simply a reaction to laughter, it's a warning, a deeply wired, protective gesture from your nervous system. Your body says, move, protect this place. But evolution, clever as it is, found a way to pair the alarm with something else: play. Play is nature's classroom. It teaches boundaries, responses, empathy, and for many young creatures, including humans, tickling became a form of social learning. Parents tickle their children and gauge their reactions. Siblings chase and poke and collapse into laughter. Even friends share the ritual: a quick pinch, a finger at the side, a knowing look. But tickling doesn't work unless you surrender control. It thrives on unpredictability. It needs tension and release. And that's where self-tickling fails. You can't sneak up on yourself. Your brain is always watching, always narrating the next step before it happens. Let's rest here, in that contradiction. You are the only one who can feel your own fingers move, and yet that knowledge makes their touch less real to your nervous system. When someone else touches you, their movements are separate from your own sense of intention. That separation creates surprise. Surprise creates reaction, and reaction creates the curious blend of discomfort and laughter that we call ticklishness. Now, think about what your fingers feel like when you press them together. Try it slowly, as if your hands are strangers meeting for the first time. There's warmth, texture, a slight resistance. Your skin notes the pressure, but your mind registers it differently than it would if someone else touched you the same way. It knows where your fingers are going before they arrive. It's prepared. This ability to predict your own actions before they unfold is part of what makes you, you. Your brain is constantly modeling your movements before they happen. When you reach for a cup, your motor system doesn't just send a signal to your arm, it also tells your sensory system, this is coming, don't overreact. It anticipates the feel of the handle, the weight of the cup, the sensation of your fingers closing around it. And so, when your own touch lands, your brain dulls the sensation slightly, not because it's boring, but because it's expected. This quiet cancellation of self-generated input is called sensory attenuation. Like a thoughtful roommate dimming the lights before you even realize you wanted them dimmed. Your brain mutes the predictable so that the unpredictable stands out. It's not trying to rob you of your own touch. It's protecting your attention. If every move you made startled you, if every brush of your own skin pulled focus, you'd never rest. You'd be flooded with noise. Instead, your nervous system prioritizes novelty. The unfamiliar gets spotlighted. The known fades softly into the background. You see this principle elsewhere too. When you speak, your voice sounds different to you than to others. That's because your brain filters it. It knows what to expect. It quiets the echo. That's why hearing a recording of your voice can feel so strange. It lacks the dampening your brain usually applies. In much the same way, your own fingers can't tickle you because they're filtered before they even land. The signal is softened. It becomes familiar, harmless, nothing to laugh about. But if someone else's fingers creep toward your side, well, that's a different story. Your brain perks up. It doesn't know exactly when or how the touch will come. Even if you see it happening, you can't fully predict the timing, the pressure, the angle. That unpredictability pierces the filter. The tickle reaches you. And that tickle isn't just a physical feeling, it's wrapped in context. You're not just reacting to the touch, you're reacting to the person. Is it someone you trust? So someone playing, not threatening? Then the sensation leans toward laughter. If not, it could feel invasive, unpleasant, even distressing. So tickling is a dance, a negotiation between your nerves and your sense of control, between what's coming from inside and what's arriving from the outside world. The feather only works if it's carried on a breeze you didn't summon. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that again. A single feather floating downward. It tumbles gently, twists in the air, catches a bit of invisible current. It lands softly on your bare shoulder. You didn't call it. You didn't place it. And that's why it makes you laugh. Your brain holds that difference with care, not to spoil the fun, but to keep you safe. It watches everything you do, every motion you prepare, and gently lowers the volume on those sensations, not out of boredom, but out of trust, because your mind believes in your control, and yet that same mind delights in what it cannot fully predict. This is the paradox you carry inside you, a self that is both the source of touch and the one who receives it. But only when those two selves are out of sync, only when the feather comes from someone else, does your laughter rise to meet it. Your mind is not just observing the world, it is shaping it, softly, invisibly, long before you realize. As your fingers move toward your side or your neck, your brain is already there, running a silent rehearsal. It predicts the exact sensation that will follow, as if whispering to your skin, "Don't be alarmed. This is me." This quiet rehearsal takes place in a part of the brain called the cerebellum, nestled low and toward the back. The cerebellum doesn't speak loudly. It doesn't shout like thoughts or emotions. Instead, it hums beneath awareness, refining your movements, correcting your balance, and, most curiously, blending what you feel with what you expect to feel. You don't notice it doing this. That's the magic. You reach for a pen, and your fingers close around it just right. You walk across uneven ground, and your feet adjust without needing instructions. You lift a cup of tea, and your hand tilts gently as the liquid shifts inside. In all these actions, the cerebellum is predicting, adjusting, smoothing, and when you move to tickle yourself, it does something else. It prepares your skin in advance. It says, "This touch is coming from within. It's safe. You don't need to react." Because ticklishness, at its core, is about unexpectedness. When something touches your skin with no warning, your body launches a cascade of responses, tightening, squirming, laughing. But when the cerebellum tells the rest of the brain, "This is familiar," that cascade is interrupted. The reaction fades before it begins. Think of a time you've been startled. Maybe someone tapped your shoulder when you thought you were alone. Your whole body jumped. That surprise wasn't just in your mind, it was in your muscles, your breath, your skin. Now imagine tapping your own shoulder. Nothing, no jolt, no shock, because you knew it was coming. The cerebellum's quiet genius lies in that difference. It takes your intention, your plan to move, and subtracts it from your sensation. The result is a kind of gentle self-muting. Your touch loses its edge. It becomes a whisper instead of a jolt. This mechanism helps you navigate the world without distraction. If you felt every step as if it were new, every blink as if it were a flash of lightning, you'd be overwhelmed. So the brain learns to filter, to smooth the known so that the unknown can stand out. And here's the dreamy part. This predictive power is happening all the time. When you speak, your brain predicts the sound of your voice. When you write, it predicts the motion of your hand. Even when you breathe, it predicts the rise and fall of your chest. It's a kind of sensory choreography, a dance between expectation and reality. And it means that your body isn't just reacting to the world, it's shaping your experience of it, moment by moment, according to what it thinks will happen next. Now, let your thoughts drift to a violin string. When a bow slides across it unexpectedly, the sound is sharp, resonant. But if you press too gently or anticipate the movement too exactly, the sound dulls, the surprise is gone. The string doesn't sing. Your skin is like that too. It sings when surprised. That's why laughter bursts out when someone else tickles you. It's not because you choose to laugh. It's because your body is momentarily unsure, caught off guard, suspended between discomfort and delight. But when you try to tickle yourself, your cerebellum protects you from that uncertainty. It ensures you're not startled by your own actions. It calms the violin string before it's ever touched. You can't sneak up on yourself. Not really. Even if you try to delay your own touch, close your eyes, or use one hand to surprise the other, your brain still knows. It recognizes your signature, the way you move, the rhythm of your intention, and it gently tells your skin, this is nothing to worry about. There's a kind of peace in that, knowing that your brain is watching over your experience, filtering out the noise you don't need. It keeps you from being overwhelmed by your own actions, so you can focus on the world outside. But it also means you lose a little magic, the thrill of surprise, the giggle that rises from nowhere, the helplessness that comes when someone you trust finds that perfect spot and doesn't let go. And so, tickling becomes something you can't create alone. It belongs to the space between you and someone else. A shared moment, a little surrender, a spark of laughter born not from the touch itself, but from the not knowing. Let's return for a moment to the feather. Imagine you're holding it in your own hand. You brush it against your arm lightly. Your skin registers the pressure. Your eyes see the motion. Your brain recognizes the source. It dulls the sensation. It says, we're in control. Now, imagine someone else holding that same feather. They move slowly, playfully, tracing it down your arm when you're not quite ready. Even if you see it coming, you flinch, your breath catches, the tickle blooms. Nothing has changed except the source, and that quietly is everything. It reminds you that your brain is not just an organ, It's an interpreter, a storyteller, a filter, and sometimes the story it tells depends entirely on where the touch is coming from. So as you rest now, let your body feel safe in that knowledge that even when you try to surprise yourself, your brain is already there, offering calm, offering quiet, so offering a steady hand that says, "It's okay, you know this," and maybe in a soft and paradoxical way. That's why tickling is so special, because it lives in the unknown, in the moments you cannot fully predict, in the fingers you don't fully control. It's a reminder that part of being alive is allowing some things to come from outside, letting go of full awareness, letting yourself be reached in the next breath, in the next imagined touch. Let your skin rest, let your thoughts settle. The cerebellum is watching. It knows you're safe. It knows what's coming, and it's already lowered the volume so you can simply be. Somewhere in the soft folds of twilight, your thoughts wander from your own skin to the fur and feathers of other creatures. You begin to wonder, is this strange, giggly sensation when something only humans experience? Or is tickling part of a much older story, woven into the paws, whiskers, and wings of beings that laugh in ways we've only just begun to hear? Close your eyes and imagine a small rat. Its fur is fine and delicate, its eyes bright with mischief. A gentle hand reaches into its space, not to threaten, but to play. The rat begins to chirp, not with fear or pain, but something else, a high-pitched sound nearly beyond the reach of human ears. It's laughter, in the language of rats, tickle-induced joy in a tiny mammal whose brain, like yours, seems wired for surprise and social delight. Researchers discovered this by accident, almost. They tickled young rats with fast, playful strokes under their bellies and on their backs. And the rats didn't just tolerate it, they sought it out. They chased the hand that tickled them. They begged for more, and their brains lit up in patterns eerily familiar to our own. Pleasure centers glowing, anticipation rising, laughter, if we can call it that, spilling from their whiskered mouths. This isn't just a curiosity, it's a clue, a quiet signal that tickling may not be an accident of human evolution, but part of a deeper current in social animals, in play, in bonding, in the ways creatures learn to live together without words. You drift a little further into this thought, picturing primates grooming one another in treetop canopies. A young chimp squeals and squirms as an older one pokes and pats at its side. Are they fighting? No. The movements are quick but gentle. There's rhythm, intention, teasing. Just like us, they play. And just like us, their laughter is triggered by touch in just the right spot, with just the right amount of surprise. Even dogs and cats, creatures we share couches and quiet evenings with, sometimes exhibit behaviors that seem close. Not quite ticklishness, perhaps, but sensitivity. Some dogs kick their hind leg reflexively when you scratch a certain spot. Some cats twitch or chatter when you ruffle the fur along their spine. These aren't perfect parallels, but they're signals, glimpses of a nervous system on alert, deciding whether a touch is invitation or intrusion. And always, beneath it all, there's context, familiarity, trust, because tickling doesn't live in isolation. It blooms in relationships. It requires you to lower your guard, to allow another being close enough to find that tender space between discomfort and delight. Think of young lions tumbling in the grass. They bite and paw and bat at each other's faces. But it's not a battle, it's rehearsal, a way of learning the rules of strength and gentleness, of self and other. Some researchers believe this is part of how social animals develop empathy, the ability to feel where someone else begins. And what better metaphor for that edge of empathy than the sensation of tickling? To tickle is to touch without threat, to invite a reaction that is half laughter, half surrender, and perhaps, in that giggle, there's a form of agreement. I won't hurt you, and you trust me not to. Let that idea settle like dew on your skin. That tickling, strange, funny, and often misunderstood, is a social signal as much as a physical one. It might be older than language, older than fire, something passed down not through instructions, but through touch. Now imagine again that tiny rat, wriggling and chirping as it's gently tickled. It doesn't laugh the way you do. It doesn't even understand laughter, not the way humans frame it, but it responds. It seeks it out. Its brain lights up in anticipation. Its joy, like yours, is rooted in surprise and connection. In fact, scientists have observed that if a rat is anxious or frightened, the ticklish response vanishes. It must feel safe. It must feel playful. Otherwise, the sensation is just a touch, neutral, or even alarming. So, too, for you, tickling never happens in a vacuum. It's not just fingers and skin. It's mood, memory, context, the trust that says, you can touch me here and I will laugh, not flinch. Now picture your own life, moments when someone made you laugh just by poking your side or chasing your feet under a blanket. The laughter wasn't only from the tickle, it was from the moment itself, the relationship, the silliness, the safety of knowing this person was close enough to reach you, but never to harm. The tickling then becomes more than a reaction. It becomes an invitation, a reminder of vulnerability shared. And here's something tender. Even in animals that don't show classic signs of being ticklish, the idea remains, this delicate boundary between self and other, between pressure and pleasure, between play and protection. Maybe that's what all ticklishness comes down to. A moment where your guard is lowered just enough to let someone in, a giggle, not just from the ribs, but from the softest part of your being. It's strange to think that rats laugh, that apes tease, that your dog's back leg kicks in time with a scratch. But perhaps it's not strange at all. Perhaps it's a thread that runs through us all, a whisper of connection, a way the body says, I know you're there, and I don't mind. So the next time you find yourself in the middle of a tickle, giving or receiving, let your mind wander gently to the forests and burrows and living rooms where creatures across the world are doing something very similar, laughing, wriggling, reacting, being surprised. Let it remind you that you are part of something vast and quietly beautiful, a world where joy is shared not just through words, but through touch, through nervous systems that recognize safety, through the feather-light contact that brings a smile instead of a flinch. Even now, as your breath slows and your body sinks deeper into stillness, you carry that memory, that language, that playfulness written into your cells. And though you may not be able to tickle yourself, you carry within you the capacity to be tickled, to be reached, to respond, not just with laughter, but with recognition. Because whether you're human or rat, child or chimp, tickling is more than a game. It's a gesture of trust. Somewhere between the animals at play and your own distant memories, laughter begins to shimmer with new meaning, not just as a reaction, not only as a sound, but as something ancient, something protective. You begin to feel how laughter, when paired with a tickle, isn't always born from joy. Sometimes it bubbles up from a strange, involuntary place. It's not the same as the laughter that comes from a joke or a shared story. It rises suddenly, breathless, and it feels urgent, desperate, even, like the body doesn't quite know whether it's supposed to flee or stay. This is the delicate tension of tickling. It feels like play, but it carries the signature of alarm. As your body twitches, your muscles tighten, your breath shortens, all the signs of a mild threat response. And yet, instead of pushing someone away, you often laugh. Instead of fighting, you might curl inward and squeal. Why does this contradiction exist? Why does the body react to tickling with both defense and delight? To answer that, drift now into the space where evolution and emotion overlap. Picture your ancient ancestors, long before cities, before shoes, before mirrors. Imagine a body curled in sleep under open stars, its soft places exposed to the cold night air, the ribs, the throat, the belly, regions so vital, so vulnerable. These are the very places you're most ticklish now. Any contact here, however slight, might have once meant danger, a crawling insect, the tongue of a predator, a rival approaching. So the body learned to respond quickly, to tighten, to jolt, to protect. Tickling, in that sense, was the earliest whisper of defense. But your ancestors didn't live alone. They lived in groups. They needed one another. They touched one another, not just in battle, but in grooming, in parenting, in comfort, in play. And over time, the body began to learn another layer of meaning. A feather-light touch near the ribs no longer always meant danger. Sometimes it meant closeness, familiarity, even affection. And so laughter emerged, not just as noise, but as a signal to others that says, I'm reacting, but I'm not threatened. I feel the surprise, but I'm still safe. Let that settle over you for a moment. The idea that laughter may have first evolved not to express happiness, but to bridge the space between fear and trust. A way to say, you startled me, but I know you mean no harm. In this light, your laughter when tickled isn't so much a choice. It's a release, a reflex caught between two ancient messages. Protect yourself and stay connected, and the nervous system, unable to decide, chooses laughter as a kind of truce. That's why you can laugh and still want it to stop. Why you can be tickled by someone you adore and still feel helpless. The body is speaking in two voices at once, one of defense, one of bonding, and laughter rises to fill the space between them. Now think about how tickling makes you move, not just your laughter, but the physical shapes you take, the way your shoulders curl forward, your knees tuck in, your arms shoot out. Those movements are protective. They're the same motions your body might use in danger, curling around your core, hiding your soft parts. But in a tickle, the danger isn't real, or rather, your brain decides it's play. The body reacts just enough to show alertness, but not enough to strike or run. You walk a thin, giggling edge between reaction and restraint. That's why tickling must be done with care, why it only works within certain relationships, certain moods, certain permissions. Because once that balance tips, once the body feels truly threatened, the laughter fades and the reflex becomes resistance. In children, this is especially clear. A toddler being tickled by a parent might laugh and flail, eyes wide with joy, but if it goes on too long, or if they don't feel in control, the laughter becomes tears. The boundary between play and panic is so thin, so fragile, the giggle turns into a cry, and the moment becomes something else entirely. That's why the best tickling is always mutual. It's a dialogue, even without words, a feeling of yes in the body, a kind of unspoken permission. You allow someone to reach the places where your nerves are most alert, and you trust them not to push too far. Now drift for a moment into the strange idea that laughter might be, at its roots, a form of submission, not weakness, but openness. A signal that you're not attacking, that you're willing to be vulnerable, and in return, you hope the other will be kind. When animals play fight, they often exaggerate their movements. They flop onto their backs, expose their bellies, make sounds that signal this is not real aggression. It's a way to bond without harm, to practice danger without injury, and in this ritual, laughter, ticklish, breathless, unpredictable, becomes a kind of emotional soft armor. That's why it can feel exhausting to be tickled, even for a short while. Your body is cycling rapidly between tension and release, alertness and relief. Your breath quickens, your muscles clench. It's not restful, but it's not panic either. It's something in between, a state of aroused safety, and always there is the laugh, that strange little burst of sound that escapes you, whether you want it to or not. It's not the laugh of comedy. It's not always joyful. It's primitive, protective, and paradoxically, it means you're okay. Let yourself rest in that contradiction. You cannot tickle yourself, not because you're incapable, but because your body does not read your own touch as surprising. It does not sense the ambiguity. It does not prepare for defense. There is no spark between danger and delight. Just stillness, predictability, familiarity. Only another person can unlock that response. Only someone just close enough to trust, just unknown enough to surprise, can walk that line. And perhaps that's part of the beauty of tickling, that it requires another, that it asks for closeness, consent, playfulness, that it cannot be faked or forced alone. So the next time you laugh from a tickle, feel how deep it goes, how old, how your body, through a cascade of muscle and memory, is reaching back into a time before language, before thought, a time when laughter was not entertainment, but signal, a sign that said, I'm alert, but I'm with you. Let that thought wrap around you now, like a soft blanket. The idea that even your laughter holds layers, that even your most playful reactions are born from ancient instincts, that even in your giggles, there's a trace of courage. And now, as that thought settles, a laugh as old as danger, as tender as trust, you find yourself drawn deeper into the mystery of control, of ownership, of knowing what belongs to you and what does not. There is a quiet line running through every sensation you experience, a hidden distinction between the touches you cause and the ones you receive. Your body, with all its softness and complexity, must constantly decide, is this from me or from something else? That line, delicate, shifting, yet always present, is what allows you to move without surprise, to pick up a spoon without jumping, to button a shirt without flinching. It is the thread that keeps you anchored in your own body, separate from the world, but still part of it. At the center of that thread is a silent system, an elegant, invisible network inside your brain that filters, compares, and confirms. It's not just your cerebellum anymore, though that quiet coordinator still plays its part. It's a collaboration, a conversation between regions that map intention, track motion, and register sensation. You begin to notice it in small ways. The way your hand doesn't tickle when you drag it across your forearm. The way your footsteps don't feel startling, even though your feet touch the ground again and again. The way your lips don't surprise you when they press together, though they're covered in nerves and constantly moving. All of these moments are acts of self-detection, your brain recognizing almost instantly that the sensation was self-generated and therefore not a threat, not something new, not something to react to. This filtering is so smooth, so complete, that you rarely even think about it, but it's always running, like a gentle current beneath the surface. And when something disrupts it, when the system can't quite decide if the touch was self-made or not, you notice, you pause, you pay attention. That's why a tickle from someone else is different. It sits right on that line of uncertainty. Your body doesn't know, at first, how to categorize it. The motion is fast, light, playful, yet unfamiliar. Your nerves flare with a question mark. The brain hesitates, and in that hesitation, you laugh. But when you try to tickle yourself, there is no hesitation, no ambiguity. Your brain receives the same sensory signal, pressure, location, speed, but it also receives your plan, your intention. It knows the movement is yours. And with that knowledge, the reaction softens. The alert is canceled before it ever starts. This is called the efference copy, one of the quieter wonders of the human brain. Imagine your brain sending a command. Move the right hand to the left ribs. Alongside that command, it sends a kind of copy to the sensory system, saying, "This touch is coming from us. Don't react." And when the touch arrives, your body listens. It recognizes the prediction, compares it to reality, and finds no surprise, no reason to respond. The magic of the system is not in its complexity, but in its reliability. It happens every moment you're awake, and even while you sleep. When you roll over in bed, your own shift in weight doesn't wake you. When you scratch an itch, the relief is immediate, not startling. When you brush your hair or stroke your face, you know it's you. You always know. And this knowing, this seamless self-detection, is part of what allows you to feel whole, to distinguish between inside and outside, between your own actions and the actions of the world. Without it, the boundaries of identity begin to blur. Some researchers believe this system is even linked to your sense of self, that the way you understand your own body, its position, its motion, its agency, depends on the quiet conversation between what you intend to do and what you actually feel. Now imagine what would happen if that conversation broke down. If your brain could no longer tell the difference between a self-made movement and one from outside. For some people, with certain neurological conditions, this happens. They might feel as though their own limbs are foreign. They might mistake their own actions for someone else's. It's unsettling, disorienting, because the body, when it loses its sense of control, becomes unfamiliar. That's how crucial the efference copy is, not just for avoiding tickles, but for preserving the soft architecture of who you are. So when you treat a tickle yourself and nothing happens, it's not because you're broken. It's because your brain is working so beautifully. It's keeping track of every plan, every motion, every touch. It's protecting you from surprise when surprise is unnecessary. It's saying, gently, you are safe. This is your hand. This is your touch. You already know. Let that comfort you for a moment. The idea that your own mind is always watching, always guiding, always smoothing the edges of your experience so you can live without constant startle, so you can trust yourself. But there's a paradox here. Now, as always, the better your brain is at predicting your own actions, the less magical they become, the more perfectly it filters your touch, the less surprising your own body feels. You gain control, but lose mystery. That's the quiet irony of being human. The more we understand something, the less it surprises us. And yet, we crave surprise, and we crave the spark of the unexpected, even when it comes as a tickle. So perhaps, in a soft and winding way, your inability to tickle yourself is a gift, a reminder that you can't do everything alone, that some sensations require another person, that some joys, like laughter, like surprise, like touch, are meant to be shared, even now, as you rest more deeply into this thought. You can feel it, that gentle division between what you create and what you receive, between what's within and what's offered from without. Your breath moves of its own accord. Your arms relax beside you. There is no surprise here, only stillness, only the soft rhythm of a body that knows itself. And still, somewhere deep inside, there remains a readiness, a place in your skin that waits to be reached by something just unfamiliar enough to matter. A hand not your own, a feather not from your palm, a gesture of play, of trust, of surrender. Because even in a body so finely attuned to its own movements, there's always space for another, always room for the unexpected, and in that space, tickling lives, just out of reach. You lie there, warm beneath your own breath, body quiet now, but mind gently awake, somewhere within. You begin to notice the soft outline of a paradox, one that's been hiding in plain sight, folded neatly into every failed attempt to tickle yourself. It's simple, almost playful. The more control you have over a sensation, the less real it becomes. And yet, that control is supposed to comfort you. You trust what you control. You rely on it. But when it comes to the kind of laughter that tickling brings, control is the very thing that erases it. Let your thoughts rest here, in this strange balance. Imagine for a moment that you're holding a balloon, its surface smooth and taut beneath your fingers. You raise your hand high, poised to pop it. You know exactly when it will burst. And so, Even though your ears brace for sound, even though your heart might skip just a little, the pop, when it comes, feels muted, manageable, expected. Now, imagine someone else holding the balloon. You're watching, but you don't know when they'll do it. Their smile is teasing. Their fingers hover, then retreat, then return. The tension stretches out. Your shoulders rise, and when it finally bursts, the jolt travels through your whole body. That is the difference. Not the sound, not the balloon, but the control. Tickling is like that too. The sensation itself may be light, barely there, but when it comes from someone else, when it arrives wrapped in mystery, it becomes electric. It gains power. You try to replicate that on your own. Your fingers trace your skin. You even try to fake yourself out, move quickly, close your eyes, delay your touch. But the mind is faster, quieter, already one step ahead, and in that moment, the surprise dissolves before the touch even lands. This is the nature of prediction. The very thing that keeps you safe also keeps you from being startled. It's a blessing, a shield, but it's also a thief, quietly stealing moments of wonder when you know too much. And so you live in a body that must constantly balance between what it controls and what it surrenders to, between mastery and magic, between knowing and feeling. That's why the best tickles, the ones that make you laugh until your breath stumbles, are the ones you don't see coming. A sudden poke at your side from someone walking past. A brush of fingertips while you're deep in thought. Your mind doesn't have time to prepare. Your body responds before you've decided how to feel, and for a moment, you're surprised into laughter. This paradox isn't limited to tickling. You feel it in other places too. Think of a massage, the way it feels when someone else presses into the muscles of your back. There's a surrender in it, a letting go. Your body isn't quite sure what's coming next, and so it pays attention. It listens with your skin. Now imagine trying to massage your own shoulders. It doesn't feel the same. The pressure is there, but the experience is dulled. Your body knows your own rhythm too well. Or think of being tucked into bed when someone else gently pulls the blanket up to your chin. There's comfort beyond the warmth. It's the sensation of being cared for by another. Try tucking yourself in, and it's still warm, but somehow less magical. You knew what was coming. The more control you have, the less wonder there is, and yet we crave both. We want to feel safe and surprised. We want to know and still be delighted. So you begin to realize maybe tickling isn't about the sensation alone. Maybe it's about what it represents, a place where your body yields, where you are known but not fully in control, where someone else is allowed, just briefly, to interrupt your perfect prediction. And that interruption, when it's done with care and consent, feels like connection. There is something childlike in that moment. Not childish, but tender, vulnerable, a reminder that you do not always have to be the one steering, that sometimes joy arrives when you let your body be guided by the unknown. Think of the last time you laughed without expecting to. Maybe someone startled you into a grin. Maybe a sudden joke slipped under your defenses. Maybe a touch landed just right, and you forgot, for a heartbeat, to control your reaction. That moment lives in your body. It glows quietly beneath your skin, waiting for the next invitation to emerge. And that glow, that openness to surprise, is where tickling draws its power, not from pressure, not from speed, but from not knowing. This is why, no matter how hard you try, no matter how you rehearse or strategize, you cannot tickle yourself. Your body, so good at anticipating, outsmarts you every time. The brain takes your intent, compares it to your movement, and softly whispers, "You already knew," and so the giggle fades before it begins. But perhaps that's the gift, a gentle reminder that there are some joys that require letting go. That surprise is not something you can create alone. That being ticklish is less about sensation and more about allowing someone else to reach a part of you that you can't reach on your own. So as you lie still now, wrapped in breath and softness, let the paradox rest beside you. Let it hum in the quiet. You are a creature of control and of surrender, of knowing and of surprise. The more you try to tickle yourself, the more your brain reminds you, this is not how laughter begins. It begins in the unpredictable, in the closeness of another, in the strange, sweet edge between tension and trust. And that's where you'll find it, again and again, not in your fingers, but in the space between you and someone else, in the feather you didn't expect, the poke that made you jump, the laugh that spilled out before you could catch it. Let yourself remember that now, that even though your body guards its secrets well, it still knows how to yield. It still remembers how to be surprised. And sometimes that surprise is exactly what it needs. Let that thought drift with you now, like a wisp of air circling your shoulder. The idea that surprise is not just amusing, but essential, that somewhere deep in your nervous system, joy is tied to not knowing. That laughter, real laughter, needs a flicker of uncertainty to bloom. Tickling belongs to that flicker. It's not about force or pressure. It's not about how soft or how fast the touch is. It's about unpredictability, the exact moment when your brain is caught between two truths. This might be a threat, and this might be play. In that space of hesitation, the body lights up. You feel it not just on the skin, but in your lungs, your limbs, your breath. The science of this moment is subtle, but it begins with timing. Tickling loses its magic when it's too slow or too expected. Your brain, always scanning, starts to recognize patterns almost instantly. It notices repetition. It anticipates rhythm. It begins filtering the input, quieting the reaction before it can fully form. But when the timing is off, just slightly, something special happens. Your brain can't keep up. It tries to predict, but the variables change. A hand that seems to move left suddenly darts right. A pause appears where none was expected, and in that gap, that breath of not knowing, the sensation slips through. That's why tickling often starts with the anticipation itself. A wiggling finger pointed at your side, a teasing glance, a giggle before the touch even lands. Your brain is already priming your body to react because it suspects surprise is coming, but it doesn't know when. That moment of suspended awareness is where the tickle takes root. Now add another element, location. Certain parts of your body are more receptive to tickling. The feet, the ribs, the neck, the underarms. These areas are rich with nerve endings and light touch receptors. They're places evolution has taught us to guard. The soft spots, the vulnerable terrain, they're like doorbells to your nervous system. Lightly touched, they send loud signals. But even in these sensitive places, the tickle won't happen if the brain knows what's coming. The element of surprise must be preserved. You could take the softest feather in the world and drag it across your own neck and feel only a ghost of the sensation. But if someone else does it, unexpectedly, you shiver, you laugh, you pull away, and so the dance of the tickle begins with unpredictability, timing, and location wrapped in the unknown. Your mind doesn't just register touch, it tries to predict it. It sends signals down neural pathways, comparing the incoming data with its expectations. When the sensation arrives exactly as expected, the brain nods. No need for alarm, no need to react. But when the prediction fails, when the signal doesn't match the forecast, that's when the brain perks up. That's when you feel it. That's when you laugh. Surprise then becomes not just a curiosity, but a requirement. It's why your own fingers are mute, why your familiar movements can't stir your nervous system into laughter. The brain predicted every twitch, every stroke. There was no mismatch, no error, no gap for sensation to sneak through. But with someone else, the signals scramble, the expectations misfire, and in that brief moment of neurological confusion, the tickle lands. You can see this even in simple experiments. If a small delay is added to your own movement, say, you press a button and a robotic arm touches you a fraction of a second later, suddenly your own touch feels more surprising, more ticklish, just enough of a delay to disrupt your brain's prediction, to let uncertainty creep in. It's the same reason why some people are more ticklish when they're distracted, or laughing already, or caught off guard. Their prediction systems are preoccupied. The usual filters are momentarily softened, and the body becomes more available to sensation. Surprise is the portal through which tickling enters. But not all surprises are the same. For the tickle to truly spark laughter and not fear, it must arrive wrapped in context, in safety, in trust. That's the third element, the who. You could be touched the same way by two different people and feel two entirely different things. One might make you laugh, the other might make you pull away, uncomfortable. Your brain doesn't just care about the timing or the place, it cares about the relationship. When a trusted friend or loved one reaches toward your side, the brain's reaction is softened by context. It doesn't shut down the signal entirely. It allows the surprise because it doesn't expect harm. It expects play. But if the same touch came from a stranger or from someone you're not emotionally safe with, the reaction shifts. The same movement that once caused laughter now triggers defense. The body closes. The tickle is no longer funny. This is the nuance of surprise. It must land on soft ground. It must be delivered with care. Without that emotional safety, the nervous system doesn't read the sensation as amusing. It reads it as threat. So now you understand. Tickling is not just about nerves. It's about timing, location, and trust. It's about letting go of prediction, just enough for the nervous system to be surprised, but not so much that it becomes afraid. Think of it like walking a tightrope, but one woven from air and attention. Lean too far toward familiarity, and the tickle disappears. Lean too far into unpredictability, and the reaction becomes resistance. But find the middle, where surprise is gentle and laughter is welcome, and you create something truly rare, a moment of shared, joyful uncertainty, a gift that only happens when someone is close enough to reach you, but careful enough not to harm. Let that idea settle into you now, that your body, for all its complexity, still finds delight in being gently surprised. That even though your brain filters and predicts and shields you from so much, it still makes room for magic, for moments that aren't planned. And in that room, where surprise lives, you find the tickle, not every time, not with every touch, but when the elements align and the moment is just right. The body lets go, the laughter rises, and the paradox fades away. Just for a while, you don't need to control it. In fact, you can't, and that's the beauty of it. Let yourself rest in that truth, that some of the most honest reactions your body gives you, the giggle, the flinch, the curl of your knees, come not from mastery, but from surrender. And maybe, in that surrender, you're reminded of something simple and profound. That surprise, when softened by trust, becomes joy. Let that last thought carry you deeper, deeper into the mind's strange ability to create, even when nothing is truly there. Because just when you believe the tickling only happens through real physical touch, your body reminds you of something quieter, something stranger. Sometimes you can feel a tickle that never happened at all. It starts as a whisper, a barely there tingle on the skin, a light shiver across your arm or down your spine. You reach to brush it away, expecting to find a strand of hair, a thread, a breeze. But there's nothing, no cause, just sensation with no source. This is the phantom tickle, a ghost of touch that arises not from fingers or feathers, but from the power of thought itself. Your skin awakens without warning. Your nerves hum softly, as if answering a question no one asked. And in that moment, your body shows its deeper truth. It doesn't always need physical input to feel something. Sometimes, imagining is enough. Think back to a time you saw someone else being tickled. You might have flinched without meaning to. Your shoulders twitched, or your stomach clenched. Even if no one touched you, your body remembered what it felt like. The suggestion alone was enough to stir your nerves. This is called sensory contagion, a curious phenomenon where the experience of someone else becomes your own. It's why you wince when you see a scraped knee, why you squirm when someone describes a spider crawling up a leg. Your body, empathetic and deeply wired for connection, mirrors what it observes, even if it never happens to you. Tickling is especially contagious. Watching someone laugh and wriggle under the fingers of a friend can make your own skin tingle, not out of jealousy, not even from memory, just from sheer mirroring. Your nervous system, always listening, always watching, responds. It's as though your brain says, "This is what it would feel like if it were you." And sometimes, that imagined touch crosses the boundary into real sensation. Not fully real, of course, but real enough to make you react. Your skin doesn't know the difference. It only knows that something has arrived. Whether it comes from outside or from within is almost irrelevant. This is how phantom tickles begin: a stray thought, a recalled memory, a line in a story. The image of someone trailing a fingertip down your spine. Suddenly, your own spine tingles. You laugh just a little. You shift in your seat. You don't know why. But the answer lies in the exquisite suggestibility of your mind. Close your eyes and imagine the sensation now, just for a moment. A feather gliding along the curve of your neck. So soft, so slow. The anticipation builds before the contact is even felt. The tickle isn't there, but your body still braces. Your nerves still light up. That's the mind's power to simulate sensation, not just to recall it as a fact, but to feel it as though it were happening again. You see this in other areas of life too. Think of a food you love: fresh bread, ripe mango, the smell of something warm from your childhood. If you concentrate, you can almost taste it. Your mouth waters, your stomach responds. There's no food in front of you, but your body prepares as if there were. Or think of pain. Just remembering a sharp injury, a cut, a burn, can cause your heart to race, your skin to tighten. The body remembers, not just intellectually, but physically. Oh, tickling behaves in much the same way. You imagine it, and your body responds. You anticipate it, and the sensation hovers just beneath the surface. Sometimes, anticipation is so strong it becomes its own feeling. This is why you might laugh even before someone touches you. Why a playful threat, "I'm gonna get you," makes you curl into a ball. Your brain doesn't need proof. It only needs the suggestion, the possibility, the idea. That's how deeply your nervous system is tied to your thoughts. But there's more. Sometimes, phantom tickles happen without memory or imagination. They arrive at random, uninvited. A twitch on your shoulder, a shimmer along your foot. Some people experience them as part of anxiety or as side effects of medication. Others feel them in moments of deep focus or relaxation, like static on the surface of awareness. These sensations remind you that the mind is not just a receiver of the world. It is also a generator, a projector, a sculptor of feeling from nothing but signal and expectation. And that sculpting can blur the line between real and imagined, between caused and conjured. This is where tickling becomes something more than skin deep. It becomes a form of communication between your inner world and your outer senses, a feedback loop that allows thought to become feeling, imagination to become touch. And here lies another paradox. The very system that prevents you from tickling yourself, your brain's predictive filter, can be bypassed through imagination. You can't surprise yourself with motion, but you can surprise yourself with thought. A sudden image, a vivid memory, a dream of someone tracing your spine. And then, there it is, that tickle. So maybe it's not just about what your body does. Maybe it's also about what your mind allows. Tickling then becomes a kind of invitation, not only to be touched, but to feel, not only by others, but by your own wandering awareness. It asks you to let go, not just of control, but of certainty, to blur the boundaries, to play with what's real. And isn't that what dreaming is, too? A state where your body sleeps, but your mind runs wild, where sensation flickers in the absence of cause, where you might feel tickled by a wind that doesn't blow, or laugh at a joke that no one told, where feathers drift through imagined air and still somehow make you squirm. Let yourself soften into that now, into the idea that even without touch, you can still be moved, that your skin can echo with memories, that your body can remember things that never quite happened. Oh, because sometimes a phantom tickle is just your mind reminding you how open you still are, how porous the line is between thought and feeling, how easily the self can be stirred by nothing at all. And maybe, just maybe, that makes the tickle even more magical. That last thought lingers like a ripple on still water. The idea that your body can respond to things that exist only in suggestion, that even without contact, even without cause, you might laugh, squirm, or smile simply because your mind imagined it. But now, let your attention shift from the imagined to the shared, from the quiet of your own thoughts to the playful spaces between people, because tickling, for all its curious biology and phantom traces, is rarely something you do alone. It lives in relationships, in glances, games, and gestures, in the secret language of laughter exchanged between siblings on a couch, in the giggles that float through a lazy summer afternoon where children chase each other barefoot through soft grass, in the way someone reaches suddenly for your side and you yelp, not from fear, but from the sheer delight of being seen, being known, being played with. Tickling is a social act. It is physical, yes, but also symbolic. It carries meaning beyond its touch. You may not always notice it, but the urge to tickle, to make someone laugh without words, is a kind of invitation, a gentle poke that says, let's play. It's not about dominance, not about power. At its best, it's a game of permission where both people agree, sometimes silently, that it's safe to laugh, safe to wriggle, safe to let go. This social dimension begins early. Infants, even before they can speak or walk, respond to tickling with smiles, coos, and delighted squirming. A parent leans in, makes silly noises, wiggles fingers in the air. The baby kicks, the baby giggles. This is more than just a reflex. It's the beginning of connection, of learning to trust that another person can enter your space with joy rather than harm. In this early moments, tickling becomes a building block for emotional communication, a rehearsal for boundaries, for responsiveness, for reciprocity. And as you grow, that rehearsal continues. You learn when to tickle and when to stop. You learn the cues, the squeals that mean again, and the laughter that hides enough. You begin to understand that tickling works only in a shared emotional space, a space of mutual play. That's why tickling is often found in the closest of relationships, between parents and children, between siblings, between friends who know each other well. It thrives in the context of familiarity. It's rare and often uncomfortable in relationships without that foundation, because what tickling communicates is subtle. It says, I know you, I know where you're sensitive, I know how to make you react, and I promise I won't go too far. That's why trust is so essential. Without it, tickling shifts tone. The same finger that caused laughter can suddenly feel intrusive. What once sparked play now triggers discomfort. That thin line between fun and force is easily crossed, and the nervous system knows it. But within the right relationship, the right mood, tickling becomes an unspoken language, one that speaks not with vocabulary, but with timing and touch. Even the anticipation is part of the conversation. The slow advance of wiggling fingers, the knowing smile, the pause before the poke, all of it choreographed, even if you don't realize it, all of it saying, we're in this together. And when the tickle finally arrives, when you squeal or laugh or flinch, it's more than just a reaction. Oh, it's a response, a call and answer, a tiny burst of shared experience that says, I trust you to surprise me. Your mind, ever watchful, doesn't just interpret the sensation, it interprets the intention. Was this touch meant to hurt or to play? Was this surprise wrapped in affection or in discomfort? Your laughter depends on the answer. This is why tickling can be so emotionally charged, why some people love it and others hate it. It's not just about sensitivity, it's about memory, context, control. For some, tickling brings back warm moments of closeness, games with family and pillow fights, laughter in bed sheets. For others, it may recall a time when boundaries were crossed, when the laughter wasn't a choice, when the game didn't feel fair, because laughter, in the context of tickling, isn't always consent. The body might giggle even when the mind says no, and that contradiction of joy and resistance can be deeply confusing. That's why, even though it seems so innocent, tickling is a kind of emotional test, a way to explore trust without speaking, a way to say, I'll let you near, but only if you listen. And when it's done right, when both people understand the language, tickling becomes something beautiful, not just a reaction, but a dance, a soft improvisation of laughter and restraint, of knowing when to press and when to pause. Even animals show hints of this. Primates tickle each other during play. Rats, as you've heard, emit tiny ultrasonic chirps that resemble laughter. But in humans, the social meaning is more layered, more nuanced. Tickling can bond, can soothe, can flirt, can tease. It can say, I'm close to you, or I'm watching you, or even I miss you, all without a single word. Let yourself feel that now, the richness of this simple act, that behind the squirm and the squeal lies a world of signals, that tickling is not just about where someone touches, but why, that every giggle is a kind of reply. You don't tickle a stranger on the street. You don't invite laughter from someone you don't trust. Tickling requires nearness, not just of body, but of heart. And maybe that's why you can't tickle yourself, because there's no social message in it, no play, no trust, no surrender. Tickling isn't something you do to yourself, it's something you share. So as you lie here now, warm and still, let your mind recall the moments when laughter came not from comedy or chaos, but from closeness. When someone reached out, not to harm, but to surprise, and your body answered without thinking, let yourself remember the playful mind, the one that still lives in you, quiet and waiting, ready for the next game, the next poke, the next shared giggle wrapped in care, because beneath all the science and sensation, tickling remains what it has always been, a small act of trust, dressed in laughter. But not all laughter is light. Not all tickling feels like play. As your thoughts drift along that line of trust and closeness, you begin to feel its edges, those quiet, almost invisible moments when something shifts, when the same gesture that once brought giggles suddenly feels too much, too long, too hard, too fast. The laughter may still come, but it's different now. Tighter, higher, forced. A sound that doesn't come from joy, but from discomfort wearing a smile. Because the truth is, your body can laugh even when your heart doesn't want to. Tickling, when misunderstood or misused, reveals just how vulnerable you really are and how easily the line between pleasure and discomfort can blur. This is one of the paradoxes of tickling, that the same sensation that says play can be under the wrong conditions, whispers something else entirely. Not, I trust you, but I want this to stop. Not do it again, but you're not listening. Your nervous system, after all, doesn't choose how to react. It just reacts. It sends the signal. It makes you flinch, curl, laugh. But your mind, your awareness, feels the context. And when that context is wrong, when the tickling continues without pause, the mismatch becomes uncomfortable, even frightening. This is especially true in children. Their bodies laugh automatically, and that laughter is often misread as enjoyment. But inside, the experience might be overwhelming. Their breath shortens, their muscles tighten. They try to say enough, but the giggles keep coming, and the adult might think it's all in fun. The child is laughing, aren't they? But what if that laughter is laced with panic? What if it's the body's last attempt to stay regulated, even as the mind pleads to be heard? This is where tickling reveals its complexity. It's not just about sensation, it's about power, about who controls the moment, about who decides when it ends. And when that balance is lost, the tickle stops being funny. Many people carry memories like this. Times when the tickling didn't stop soon enough, when a sibling wouldn't let go, when a friend didn't listen, when the laughter tipped over into helplessness. They might still laugh about it now, brush it off as harmless, but somewhere in the body, a quiet resistance remains. That's why some people flinch when tickled, even by someone they love, not because they don't trust them, but because the memory of not being heard lingers. The nervous system remembers. It carries a whisper of that imbalance, and even in the safest hands, that memory can stir. So tickling becomes a kind of test, not just of trust, but of responsiveness, a way to say, do you see me? Do you hear me? Will you stop when I need you to? When the answer is yes, the tickling is joyful. It's a dance, a game, a shared breath of silliness. When the answer is no, even once, the laughter can echo with something heavier. This is not to say tickling is bad. Far from it. It's a beautiful, playful form of connection when it lives inside consent. But like all forms of touch, it carries a responsibility to listen, to watch, to notice the shift in tone, in breath, in body, and to honor it. Because what starts in laughter should never end in withdrawal. The body knows when something is too much. It tells you in ways that don't use words. A slight recoil, a nervous giggle that sounds too sharp, a laugh that doesn't quite reach the eyes. These are not signs to push further. They're invitations to pause, to ask, to check in. And when someone listens, really listens, the trust deepens. The bond grows stronger because now the laughter is true. Now it comes from safety, not survival. You can even feel this difference in your own body. When tickling is welcome, your breath may catch, but it flows. Your muscles may tense, but they release. You squirm, but you're smiling. You feel seen, but not exposed. Vulnerable, but never powerless. But when tickling feels different, when it's too much or too fast or too prolonged, your body responds in other ways. You may try to escape. You may laugh harder, not because it's funny, but because your nervous system is trying to regulate something it doesn't understand. That's when the laughter becomes a shield, and that's when the tickle must stop. Let yourself reflect on that now, not with judgment, not with shame, but with gentleness. Maybe you've been on both sides. Maybe you've laughed too long when you didn't want to. Or maybe you've been the one chasing someone with tickling fingers, thinking it was still a game. It's all part of learning, of growing, of understanding that the body speaks in many languages, and that laughter is only one of them. This is why tickling, despite its reputation as a silly pastime, deserves to be taken seriously, not somberly, not with fear, but with awareness, with care, because it touches something deep, something soft, something that depends on the quiet agreement in between two people. I'll follow your lead, and maybe that's what makes good tickling so special. It's not just about finding the right spot. It's about listening, about knowing when to approach and when to retreat, when to press and when to pause. It's about reading the room, reading the breath, reading the body. And when all of those things align, when the laughter flows freely, when the hands are gentle, when the timing is just right, tickling becomes more than a reflex. It becomes a relationship, a shared language of trust that says, we're safe here, we're together. But when it doesn't, it's okay to say no. It's okay to pull away. It's okay to let the laughter go quiet and trust that someone will hear the stillness too. So now, as your breath returns to its slow rhythm and your thoughts begin to soften again, remember this: your body is wise. It knows the difference. It remembers how to laugh when it's ready. And it knows when it's time to stop. And anyone who truly wants to play with you will listen. That last thought rests in your chest like a small stone smoothed by water, solid but softened. The idea that your body knows, that it listens, responds, remembers, and that even something as lighthearted as tickling is woven through with care, consent, and extenistro. Now, let yourself drift further back through time, not just through memory, but through evolution. Picture the ancient bodies that came before yours, bodies that curled into nests, that trembled beneath starlit skies, bodies that didn't yet speak, but still felt, still flinched, still laughed. Long before tickling was playful, it was functional, protective, a whisper of alarm in places most vulnerable, your ribs, your neck, the soles of your feet. These are the places evolution marked as important, fragile, vital, and so your nervous system shaped itself around them like ivy curling over stone, placing delicate receptors in just the right spots. It wasn't about joy back then. It was about survival, a crawling insect, a sharp thorn, the first brush of a predator's claw. Your body needed to react before you could think. A twitch, a jolt, a turn. The faster the reaction, the better your chances of staying safe. And so, you developed sensitivity, light touch receptors tuned to the subtlest pressure, nerves ready to fire at the first sign of the unknown. But here's where it becomes beautiful. Evolution didn't stop with defense. It folded in something more. As humans became more social, more cooperative, the same nerves that once warned of danger began to respond to play, to grooming, to closeness, to hands that meant no harm. And so the body didn't just stay alert, it began to allow. It allowed others near, allowed gentle touch in tender places, allowed sensation to become laughter. And with that shift, tickling crossed a line from reflex into relationship, from survival into connection. That's why your body is still tuned this way. Why those same delicate spots on your skin respond so intensely to just the right touch. Why a poke in the ribs still makes you jump. Why a trace across your neck makes your shoulders rise. These responses aren't random, they're inherited, passed down like lullabies from bodies long gone. A silent lineage of reactions you didn't choose, but that belonged to you all the same. And within this inheritance are filters, gentle, invisible mechanisms that decide what to notice and what to ignore. Because your body can't respond to everything. It would be too much. Every shirt brushing your back, every blanket shifting in the night, every breeze that curls across your arms. So evolution gave you filters, systems that turn down the volume on the expected, that let you walk, breathe, move, without startling at your own shadow. This is why your own touch doesn't make you flinch. Your brain, ever efficient, subtracts the known from the felt. It dampens your self-made sensations. Not because they don't matter, but because they are safe, predictable, familiar. This filtering keeps you calm. It allows your mind to focus on what matters, what's new, what's different, what might need attention. And so, when someone else touches you unexpectedly, especially in a place your body deems important, that sensation gets through. It rings louder. Tickling is one of the rare places where this whole system comes alive. The touch is light, but unfamiliar. The timing is brief, but unpredictable. And the location? It's one of your ancient maps, one of those tender zones drawn by evolution as here, protect this. So even now, in a world with no lions in the grass, no thorns in the bedding, your body still listens, still watches, still reacts. The system remains, like an old song played on a modern instrument. But evolution didn't just hand you sensitivity, it handed you interpretation. Your brain doesn't just feel, it understands. It reads the context. It decides whether a touch is threat or game, whether to guard or giggle. This is how laughter became layered. It's not just noise, it's information, a signal to others that says, I noticed, but I'm okay. You touched me, but I trust you. It's a form of communication older than words, built on the back of reflexes, carried forward through care. And it's not only physical, even now, as you lie still, you can feel the system at work. Your breath slows, but your skin remains aware. A sound, a movement, a breeze, and your body evaluates. Is this something I need to react to, or is it safe to stay still? Most of the time, your filters answer for you. They let quiet things remain quiet. They let comfort be unbroken. But sometimes, just sometimes, a touch, a glance, a laugh slips through, and you react. Not because you're weak, but because you are human. Because your body was made not only to endure, but to connect. That's why tickling, even in all its silliness, has stayed with us. Why it still appears in childhood games, in flirtation, in moments of intimacy, It reminds your body of its design to feel, to laugh, to let another near, and not be afraid. Let yourself feel that now, not just the sensation of being tickled, but the meaning behind it, the legacy, the safety, the message it carries from generations before you, who learned that survival wasn't just about flinching, it was about knowing when not to, because the same system that once made you jump at a spider's touch now lets you melt into laughter under a trusted hand. And perhaps that's the most beautiful part, that evolution didn't just teach you to react, it taught you when to yield. It taught you that some touches mean danger, but others mean, I see you, I'm here. That even your reflexes, so primal and automatic, can be shaped by trust. So the next time someone tickles you and you laugh, or squirm, or pull away, know that your body is doing something remarkable. It's reading the moment. It's responding not just to the pressure of fingers, but to the feeling of being known. That's what makes the tickle real, not the contact, but the connection. You stay there, nestled in the stillness your body has made, and you notice something subtle rising to the surface, a pause, a question, not in words, but in the space between them. You begin to sense that sometimes knowing something is coming is enough to make it disappear. It's true with tickling. You've felt it before. A friend reaches for your side, their fingers lifted in playful warning, and your body tenses. You're ready. You expect the touch. But when it finally arrives, something has changed. You don't laugh. You might squirm or flinch or even smile, but the tickle never quite lands. The anticipation washed it away. This is one of the stranger truths your nervous system holds. The act of expecting a sensation can dampen it, almost erase it. Even the gentlest tickle depends on just enough surprise to reach you fully. It needs a sliver of the unknown. But anticipation, especially when paired with certainty, acts like a curtain. It shields your body from the very sensation it might have responded to just seconds earlier. And so, tickling teaches you this quiet paradox. What you brace for loses its edge. Your brain, ever protective, ever efficient, adjusts your sensitivity based on context. If it knows something is coming, it prepares. It tempers your reaction. It softens the noise. That's how it keeps you calm. That's how it helps you navigate a world filled with countless touches and pressures and sounds. But sometimes, the brain is too good at its job. It anticipates not just movement, but emotion. It expects laughter and then doesn't let it come. It expects sensation and instead offers silence. You've seen this in other parts of life too. Think about how different a cold breeze feels when you expect it, when you've braced yourself, versus when it arrives unannounced, or how a surprise hug can make your heart leap, while a hug you see coming simply settles in, soft but subdued. Expectation dulls the edge of feeling, not because the feelings are wrong, but because your brains has already filed them away, already made room, already decided what to do. In tickling, this effect is even sharper because the sensation itself is so fragile, so reliant on the unknown. Even a few milliseconds of awareness can mute it entirely. The moment you see it coming, your body prepares its shield. This is why even the idea of being tickled can bring about a squirm, and also why, sometimes, that imagined tickle doesn't follow through. It's not just about what you feel, it's about when you feel it. Timing, after all, is everything. You might be the most ticklish person in the world, and still, if someone announces they're going to tickle you, then moves slowly, predictably, their fingers poised just above your ribs, you feel nothing. Your body flinches, or your mind expects, but the tickle itself has vanished because the mind already knows. And what the mind knows too well, the body no longer fears. It's almost like a magic trick that stops working once you learn how it's done. The awe fades, the spark dissolves, not because the trick changed, but because you did. So now, consider what this means beyond tickling. How many sensations, how many moments in life have been muted by too much readiness, too much certainty? You prepare for joy and find it dulled. You rehearse comfort and find it thin. You anticipate laughter and it won't come. Anticipation is useful, yes. It protects you, it readies you, but it also closes doors. It wraps the world in expectations and leaves little room for surprise. Tickling, in its strange and delicate way, reminds you that sometimes you must not know in order to truly feel. That's why it's so hard to tickle yourself, not just because your brain subtracts your own movement, but because your mind is already there. You can't hide from yourself. You can't sneak up on your own skin. There's no element of surprise, no uncertainty to ignite a response. Your anticipation is total, complete, and in that completeness, the sensation disappears. Even the phantom tickles, the ones imagined, remembered, only work when they arrive unexpectedly. When your thoughts slip sideways, when your body isn't quite paying attention, that's when the laughter bubbles up. That's when you feel most alive. So now, as you lie still, think of the places on your body where you're most sensitive. The soft hollows, the warm folds, the places you guard without even realizing. These are the places that come awake not just through touch, but through timing. They don't want pressure, they want mystery, and your nervous system listens closely to that request. It tunes itself constantly, adjusting the volume of sensation according to what you're ready for. And when you're too ready, the dial turns low, not out of malice, but out of design. Because if you jumped at every touch, if every sensation was loud and sharp, you'd be overwhelmed. This is the brain's gift, and also its boundary. It protects you from overload, but it can also protect you from delight. So what can you do? You allow for surprise. You let go just a little. You stop trying to predict. You stop bracing. You let your body be found, not commanded. And maybe that's the quiet lesson of tickling, that not everything can be summoned, that some joys must arrive without invitation, that the more you try to control them, the faster they slip through your fingers. It is not weakness to be surprised. It is not foolish to laugh without knowing why. It is a gift, a moment when your body and mind are not entirely in sync, when something reaches you before you've built your defenses, when you are caught off guard, but safe. Let yourself soften into that now, into the realization that anticipation, for all its power, is not always your friend, that sometimes the best feelings are the ones you didn't see coming, that tickling, like love, like wonder, needs a touch of mystery, So let go, just a little. Let the next laugh find you, not because you expected it, but because you didn't. And now, with that hush of unknowing still wrapped around you, your mind drifts back to places softer, smaller, and closer to the ground. You remember what it was like to be a child, to play without reason, to laugh without understanding why, to run until your legs gave out, then collapse in the grass, breathless, weightless, with nothing but the sun and sky above. Tickling lived there, too, not as a curiosity or scientific puzzle, but as part of play, an ingredient in the messy, magical stew of childhood joy. You might remember a specific moment, a pair of hands chasing yours, a pile of blankets, a bed that became a boat, a mountain, a battlefield, and in the middle of it, fingers darting toward your ribs, laughter bubbling from your chest before the touch even landed. The tickle wasn't a trick. It was a signal, a way to say, I'm here with you. We're having fun. You're safe enough to let go. Children understand this instinctively. Long before they can define touch or trust, they feel it. They respond to play, not just with movement, but with their whole bodies. Their laughter is full-bodied. Their squirming is uninhibited. They giggle from the tips of their toes to the top of their heads. But that laughter isn't random. It's built from structure, unseen, but solid. In childhood, play follows rules. Even the wildest games have boundaries. Chase has an endpoint. Hide and seek has a seeker. And tickling, too, carries its quiet agreements. You tickle only when both are ready. You stop when asked. You read the room, even if the room is a blanket fort and the players are 6 years old. Children may not have words for boundaries, but their bodies know them. A laugh can shift into a squeal. A smile can vanish into a frown. And in that instant, the tickle is no longer welcome. The game must pause. The rules have changed. And when they're honored, when a tickler listens, when they stop on cue, the trust deepens. The child learns that they can be reached and respected, that they can be touched and still in control, that giggles and safety are not mutually exclusive. This is where the real magic happens, because tickling, nestled inside play, becomes something more than a sensation. It becomes rehearsal for empathy, for communication, for boundaries, a quiet training ground for human connection. You can see this in the smallest moments. A toddler pokes their parent and laughs. The parent gasps dramatically, then tickles back. A loop is created, action, reaction, joy, and within it, a lesson. My actions have effect. My touch is powerful. My laugh can shape the world around me. And it doesn't stop in early childhood. As you grow, the shape of play evolves, but its function remains. You laugh with friends. You wrestle, tease, poke. The tickle becomes flirtation. It becomes comfort. It becomes a nudge in the ribs during a shared joke. A brush of fingers under a blanket during a movie. A game that never really ends, only shifts. And each time it returns, it reminds you of something very old inside you. Something that remembers laughter as connection, that sees touch not just as contact, but as conversation, because play, at its heart, is how humans bond. We play to explore the world, but also to explore each other, to test limits gently, to ask, is this okay? Can I come closer? Will you laugh with me? and tickling becomes one of the simplest, purest ways to ask. But not everyone carries this memory with ease. For some, childhood play didn't feel safe. The rules weren't followed. The tickles didn't stop. The laughter was real, but it was laced with helplessness, with being smaller, slower, less in control. And so, for some grown-ups, the idea of being tickled stirs something uneasy, not because they don't like joy, but because joy was once used against them. That's why tickling must always be treated as an offering, not a right, an invitation, not a demand. Whether in childhood or adulthood, the same rule applies. You ask, even without words, and you listen, always. Because in the right hands, tickling rekindles that ancient playfulness, the one that lives beneath worry and years, the one that doesn't care about productivity or dignity or being taken seriously, the one that says, you're allowed to be silly, you're allowed to surrender, you're allowed to laugh. And when that feeling is safe and shared and mutual, tickling returns you to something sacred, a sense of weightlessness, of presence, of connection that doesn't need to be explained. Think back now to your favorite childhood laugh. Maybe you can't place it precisely. Maybe it's more of a feeling than a scene. But let it come anyway. Let it rise through your ribs like a warm balloon. Let it remind you that laughter doesn't need to be perfect, or polite, or planned. Let it remind you that your body still remembers how to play, because that memory never leaves. It only quiets, buried under work and worry and grown-up rituals, but it's there, waiting, just beneath the skin. Sometimes all it takes is a poke, a gesture, a silly voice, a game. Sometimes all it takes is a feather, real or imagined, dancing across your awareness. You laugh, you flinch, you look up, you let go, and in that letting go, your body says, yes, I remember. I'm still here. So as you lie still now, eyes soft, breath slow, let that part of you breathe again. The playful part, the unguarded part, the one who isn't trying to figure it all out, the one who doesn't need to anticipate or control, just the one who laughs. That childlike laughter still lingers in the corners of your mind, warm and echoing like wind chimes in a distant garden. But now, as your thoughts stretch a little wider, you begin to wonder, how does the world see this peculiar sensation, this strange fusion of touch and giggle and trust? Surely, if tickling is something so deeply human, then every culture must carry its own understanding of it, its own rituals and meanings wrapped gently around this flickering sensation. And so, you drift outward, beyond your own childhood, beyond your own body, into the quiet spaces where culture and skin meet. In some places, tickling is considered the laughter of the soul, a playful proof of life. In parts of the Philippines, there's a word, kiliti, who used to describe that delicate sensation. It doesn't just mean ticklish, but also carries a feeling of gentle thrill, like butterflies in the stomach or a giggle caught in the throat. It's a word that recognizes the emotional weight of lightness, the significance of something fleeting. In Japan, children play a game called kusuguri, a form of tickle tag, where laughter chases laughter around the room. There's even a traditional image in Japanese folklore of kappa, water-dwelling tricksters who would tickle their victims, playfully, but not always gently, even here, where the tickle becomes mischievous. It still holds a role, still dances between fear and fun. In China, there are historical tales of emperors who employed tickling as a form of control or punishment, usually in jest, but sometimes not. In one story, a noblewoman was punished not with whips, but with feathers. Her laughter, uncontrollable, was used as a form of submission. In another, guards tickled the soles of prisoners' feet as a method of extracting confessions. These were not moments of joy, but of imbalance, where play was used without consent and laughter masked distress. You see, even across time and language, tickling holds dual meanings. In some cultures, it's sacred. In others, silly. Sometimes playful, sometimes cruel. It becomes whatever the context allows. Among indigenous communities, tickling often appears as a sign of closeness, of comfort. Parents tickle infants as a bonding ritual, a way of sharing touch that's rhythmic and soft, not to provoke, but to connect. A pulse of care passed from finger to rib, from giggle to heart. In parts of India, the sensation of being tickled is considered mildly spiritual. Ticklish spots, especially the feet and sides, are viewed as energetically sensitive areas, prone to laughter but also emotion. In Ayurvedic's tradition, these regions are tied to channels of energy that react strongly to attention, even more so when that attention is unexpected. Even in ancient Greece, philosophers puzzled over the meaning of tickling. Plato called it a curious mixture of pain and pleasure. Aristotle thought it to be rooted in surprise and suddenness, believing that laughter from tickling was the result of change, unexpected, but not threatening. And so, across centuries, thinkers and caretakers and poets alike have tried to name this sensation, to explain why something so light can feel so big, why we laugh even when we don't mean to, why being tickled makes us feel so alive and so exposed. In some places, tickling is ritualized. In traditional Hawaiian hula, a ticklish gesture of the hands might signal flirtation or mischief. In parts of Africa, elders might tickle children to teach them the sound of their own laughter, to remind them that voice can come from joy, not just from hunger or need. But not all cultures treat tickling with celebration. In Victorian England, it was viewed as impolite, too intimate. Laughter that wasn't prompted by wit was seen as uncultured. A tickle-induced giggle, especially in public, was considered undignified. The body, in this view, was expected to remain composed, predictable, controlled. How strange it must have felt, then, to live in a world where laughter was discouraged, especially the kind that couldn't be helped, the kind that burst forth without permission. And yet, even there, tickling persisted. It found its way into private spaces, into nurseries, into bedrooms, into gardens where corsets could be loosened and shoes kicked off. It lived in the shadows, where laughter was still allowed to be wild. So now, as you float through these glimpses of the world's relationship with tickling, you begin to see the pattern, not in the act itself, but in what surrounds it. The same fingers can mean comfort or cruelty. The same laugh can be joyous or coerced. What changes everything is the container, the trust, the timing, the tone, just like in the body, where the same nerves can signal safety or threat depending on who touches them. In culture, tickling becomes a mirror. It reflects how we treat vulnerability, how we handle laughter, how we allow others close. In open cultures, tickling may be frequent, relaxed, loud. In more restrained cultures, it becomes private, subtle, rare, but always, somewhere, it exists. Because every culture has laughter, and where there is laughter, there is almost always a place for the tickle. Even language itself tries to catch the feeling. There are words for tickling in nearly every tongue, yet few of them truly capture the complexity. They can describe the sensation, but not the emotional layering, not the mix of glee, discomfort, anticipation, and memory. Only the body knows that language fully. Only the skin speaks it fluently. Let that settle now. The idea that your experience of being tickled, how you receive it, how you offer it, is shaped not only by biology, but by story, by family, by place, by the unspoken teachings of your culture. Perhaps you were raised in a home where laughter filled the rooms, where tickles chased through the halls like playful ghosts. Or maybe your household was quieter, more reserved, and tickling was something you watched but rarely felt. Either way, your body remembers, not just the touches, but the meaning behind them. And maybe that's the deeper lesson, that tickling, despite its simplicity, contains layers as rich and wide as the world itself, that it's not just a reaction, but a relationship, a reflection of what we're taught about laughter, about closeness, about letting others in. So the next time someone reaches toward you with a playful smile, or you see two children rolling with joy on the floor, remember, you are witnessing something ancient, something cross-cultural, something more than skin deep. You are witnessing the human body saying, I'm alive, I'm open, I'm here. And in that laughter, 1,000 stories bloom. And now, as those cultural echoes dissolve into quiet, you return to your own body, this singular living space that feels and flinches and laughs. It's where every tickle lands, where every touch is weighed, where every giggle finds its voice. But beneath the skin, deeper than nerves or reflexes, lives something even more fundamental, the sense of self. You begin to realize that tickling, for all its laughter and lightness, draws a boundary, a gentle but unmistakable line between you and everything else. Your body is always mapping, always listening. It's not just feeling the world, it's deciding where the world ends and you begin. Every time you lift a hand, blink an eye, step forward or lean back, you're navigating the space of being someone, not just a body, but a body that belongs to you. And this is where tickling becomes unexpectedly profound, because it depends on that, on knowing what's yours and what's not. When you try to tickle yourself, your brain dismisses the sensation, not because your skin is numb to your own touch, but because your mind already marked it as internal, as part of the self, familiar, controlled. The surprise vanishes because your boundaries aren't crossed, but when someone else tickles you, that boundary is breached in a way that is light and playful and harmless, and yet your body lights up because it knows, this is not me, this is other, this is outside, and it's that crossing of the border that sets off the reaction. You laugh, not just because it tickles, but because you feel seen, touched, aware that someone has reached past the invisible edge of your selfhood and made contact. In this way, tickling becomes a kind of mirror, not of what you look like, but of what you are. a reminder that there's a you inside this body, and that you is distinct from the world around you. Infants learn this early, often through touch. Before they can speak, before they can name their fingers or toes, they begin to grasp the difference between self and other. A caregiver's hand feels different than their own. A tickle is not just a giggle, it's an awakening, a revelation. That wasn't me, but I felt it. From then on, the body refines its map. Every touch contributes, and tickling, with its vivid intensity, becomes a teacher. It says, here's your skin, here's where you end, here's where the world begins. This sense of self isn't just spatial, it's emotional, relational, philosophical. It's how you know you are you and not someone else. And so, when you're tickled by another person, especially someone you trust, the sensation isn't just physical, it's affirming. It says, you are a person. I see you. I can reach you. And in your laughter, you say, I know. I feel it. I'm here. It's a fleeting, beautiful exchange, one that requires boundaries, but also the willingness to let someone gently cross them. Now imagine for a moment a world without this distinction, where your body could no longer tell what was self and what was other, where every touch, even your own, felt unfamiliar, disorienting. That sense of you, the stable, centered presence, would begin to unravel. There are neurological conditions where this does happen. People lose the ability to recognize their own limbs as theirs, or feel that their movements are being controlled by someone else. These experiences are rare, but they show how foundational this boundary is to being human. Tickling is not a disorder. It's the opposite. It proves the boundary exists, that your brain can differentiate, that your nervous system can say, this came from me, or this did not. And that difference is what allows laughter to rise. So perhaps tickling is not just about being sensitive, or playful, or surprised. Perhaps it's about being separate, and knowing it, and still allowing closeness. Because true connection isn't the erasure of boundaries, it's the recognition of them. It's saying, I know where I end, and I still let you near. This is what makes tickling such a strange and intimate act. It's physical, but it touches something more. It's not sexual, yet it's not neutral. It carries no danger, yet it causes a jolt. And in the center of all that contradiction is the sense of self, responding, laughing, reacting to the presence of another. You don't tickle someone you don't acknowledge. You don't laugh with someone who doesn't exist in your map of the world. Tickling requires mutual recognition. Two selves, two edges, a meeting place. And in that meeting, something primal and joyful takes place. Now think of all the moments in your life when someone reached across that boundary in the gentlest way. A hug, a brush of hair behind your ear, a hand on your back. These weren't just gestures, they were reminders. You are here. I see you. We are different, but connected. Tickling says the same thing, only with laughter. So as you rest deeper into this thought, let yourself feel that boundary, not as a wall, but as a contour, the shape of you, the edge that defines, but doesn't confine, the space where you begin, and the space where others are allowed to meet you. Tickling isn't the only way we cross that space, but it's one of the most playful, one of the most revealing, It's a celebration of separateness that allows for touch, a reminder that being a self doesn't mean being alone. And in that moment, brief, breathless, giggling, you remember who you are, not just because you felt something, but because someone else helped you feel it. Now that you've settled into the idea of boundaries, those soft, invisible edges that define where you end and someone else begins, your thoughts turn toward a quiet curiosity. Could you ever cross that line on your own? Could you somehow learn to tickle yourself? It feels like such a simple question, childlike even, but it holds something more, a gentle tension between what you can control and what must remain surprising. You've likely tried before, maybe absent-mindedly, fingers creeping toward your ribs or tracing under your foot. And even if the skin twitched, even if you felt something, the reaction was muted. It wasn't ticklish, not in the way someone else's touch would be. It lacked the laughter, the involuntary magic. But that hasn't stopped scientists and thinkers and tinkerers from wondering, could it be possible? Could the mind be tricked? Some researchers have tried. They've built machines, strange, spidery devices with soft brushes or feathers attached that move in ways that almost feel like someone else is controlling them. The idea is simple. Create just enough delay between your action and the sensation so your brain can't fully predict what will happen. Because, as you've learned, prediction is the spoiler. It's your brain's habit of anticipating its own actions that dulls the response. When you try to tickle yourself, your cerebellum sends a signal saying, "Don't bother reacting, this is me." But with a delay, with a flicker of uncertainty, that expectation breaks down. Some participants in these studies reported partial success, a faint tickle, a small shiver, not as intense as being touched by someone else, but different from their usual self-touch. It was as if the brain, momentarily confused, let its guard down just enough for a giggle to slip through. And so, in this tiny space between certainty and surprise, something new emerged. Still, it wasn't perfect. The effect was subtle. The brain adjusted quickly. Once the mechanism became familiar, the mind adapted, learning its rhythms. The sensation faded again. The tickle retreated, because the brain is always learning, always updating. It doesn't like being fooled for long. Even more imaginative approaches have been tested. Virtual reality environments, where your actions are mirrored by an avatar, or robotic arms controlled from a distance. And yet, no matter how clever the tool, the result remains elusive, close, but never quite the same. There's something oddly comforting about that. The fact that you can't trick yourself into laughter, that your brain is so deeply attuned to its own movements, its own authorship, that even the gentlest deceit is quickly spotted. You are not just the person being tickled, you are also the one keeping the secret, the magician, and the audience, all at once, and so the performance loses its charm. Still, these experiments reveal something delicate and beautiful, how tightly the tickle is tied to trust and to otherness. It cannot thrive in complete control. It needs space and surprise and another mind across the invisible line. But perhaps there's another way to interpret the question. Instead of asking whether you can physically tickle yourself, what if the question is emotional, psychological? Can you surprise yourself? Delight yourself, make yourself laugh, even when you didn't mean to. In some ways, yes, you've had moments where your own thoughts made you chuckle, where a memory burst through and made your chest shake, where you caught yourself humming a tune you didn't realize you'd remembered. Those too are tickles of the mind rather than the skin, internal echoes that bypass your usual filters, that reach you somehow, like a friend sneaking up from behind. This is the essence of wonder. And maybe, just maybe, that's the closest we get to self-tickling, allowing ourselves to be surprised by what we carry within, what we've forgotten or ignored or buried beneath layers of predictability. You can't tickle your own skin in the traditional sense, but you can startle your mind with beauty, with absurdity, with joy. You can read a poem that makes you gasp. You can catch a glimpse of yourself in a mirror and suddenly see how much you've grown. You can walk into a room and forget what you came for, only to discover something you didn't know you needed. And in that moment, your brain does something marvelous. It lets go just for a breath, just long enough for something new to land. And maybe that's what laughter needs most. Not a perfect setup, not a clever trick, just a moment where the mind forgets it's in control, where it's willing to receive. So even if you never build the perfect tickling machine, even if your fingertips never make you flinch, you are still capable of surprise. And perhaps that's what matters more. Let this be a comfort now, as the room quiets further, as your breath slows, as your awareness begins to blur at the edges. You are not meant to do everything alone, not even something as small and silly as a tickle. You are designed for connection, for interplay, for sensation that arrives from somewhere just beyond your reach. That's what makes it magical. That's what makes it real. And when it does come, when the laughter bubbles out, when the touch lands just right, you'll know it wasn't you. You'll know it was something else, someone else, reaching you across that soft divide. And in that knowing, something settles. You don't have to control everything. You don't have to predict every moment. Sometimes, the best feelings are the ones you didn't create, but simply allowed. And now, as the final threads of thought drift softly around you, you feel the last wisps of the question begin to dissolve. Like a feather floating down through a still, dark room, the mystery of why you can't tickle yourself no longer presses against your mind. It simply rests there, gentle, quiet, unanswered in just the right way. Your body feels heavier now, not burdened, but grounded, each limb loose, as if laughter has passed through and left its soft echo behind. You don't need to think anymore. You've traveled far through skin and laughter, through history and science, through stories tucked inside cultures and childhood memories, and now you arrive at stillness. Imagine the sensation of lying in a boat, gently rocking. The stars overhead are beginning to blink into view, one by one. They don't rush. They appear like old friends returning, familiar, warm, expected. The water below barely ripples, but every so often, a soft wave nudges the wooden hull, not enough to disturb you, just enough to remind you that you're held. In this space, the idea of tickling feels different, not playful or silly or strange, but symbolic. a representation of something much deeper than sensation, a reminder that your body is not just a vessel for touch, but a canvas of communication, trust, memory, and meaning. You recall how tickling depends on another, how it can't be summoned at will, how it's shaped by boundaries, softened by laughter, deepened by care. It is not just something that happens to you, it's something shared, and that's what makes it special. So many of life's most beautiful things are like this: a breeze that catches your sleeve, a burst of laughter you didn't expect, a touch on your shoulder that makes you feel seen. You cannot generate these on command. They arrive, they visit, and you receive them. That's what makes them feel like gifts. And so, the question that brought you here, why can't you tickle yourself, gives way to something even more gentle, a truth about being human, about needing others, about the quiet magic of surprise. Your brain, so clever and precise, protects you from your own touch. It filters, anticipates, softens. It builds a sense of self, not as a fortress, but as a lighthouse, steady, watchful, surrounded by waves. And sometimes, from those waves, another light approaches, playful, kind, curious, and it reaches your shore not with words or explanations, but with laughter. You feel that now. Not just the concept, but the comfort. The way a giggle can stir without permission. The way a tickle can break through stillness and bring you back to the present. The way sensation reminds you that you're alive in a world that often demands composure, that celebrates control and certainty. A tickle is a soft rebellion, a signal that not everything must be managed, that not every laugh needs a reason. And as you lie here, safe and quiet, the rebellion feels welcome. It doesn't ask for action. It doesn't beg to be solved. It simply lingers, like the memory of a hand brushing your side, a smile in the dark, a spark of recognition. Let yourself drift with that feeling now. Let it settle under your skin like warm light. Let it soothe any edges that still feel sharp. Let it remind you that surprise can be gentle, that connection doesn't always need words, that even the smallest sensation, when wrapped in trust, can open your heart. You've walked through layers of yourself tonight, from the biology of the brain to the laughter of childhood, from ancient rituals to modern machines, from the edges of identity to the softest places of vulnerability. And through it all, the thread has remained the same. You are not alone. Your body is not an island. It is a meeting place, a conversation, a map of where the world touches you and where you respond. And now, in this quiet hour, that map folds gently into sleep. The laughter fades. The giggle becomes a sigh. The edge between self and other softens, not in confusion, but in peace, like two colors blending at the horizon, like a hand held in the dark, like the memory of a tickle that never needed to be repeated to be remembered. Let the night hold you now. Let the darkness be kind and still. Let your breath move like tides, slow and steady, pulling you farther from the shore of thought. There is nothing more to understand, nothing more to question, only this soft knowledge, like a whisper just behind your ear. You are here. You are safe. You are allowed to rest.